Can you hear me?
Yeah, very fine.
Okay. I think when you have arrived, the Teams on the computer, which the microphone is working, it quit on me.
It was not up, so I figured it was something to do with that.
Yes. Okay. Okay.
Okay, so we did finish the date time share. Any questions on the date time? I know we kind of
I
fumbled
have
off
just,
that, but
I have just a question with daytime parse. Yesterday I was doing challenge 3 on my own, and I saw that one of the solutions, they were changing the date format to the specific format, but I never understood that they were using something like daytime parse, whatever the column name is, comma, in quotation marks. They were using like %B dash %D dash %year. I don't know if that's something with dates, but I can find the solution and then share my screen if you like towards the end of the session today.
Yeah, let's take a look. So that's date time notation. I'm not super good with that. I recognize it. That's something that I didn't really use that much, so I tend to just look it up when I need it. But yeah, that's just a different kind of notation.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right, then.
Okay.
That was the only thing I didn't understand yesterday because it didn't make sense to me. I didn't know what does B stand for, but I think when I show you the solution,
yeah. So there's a good, I'll give you a link to a good community article that shows that's just, it's a shorthand for referring to dates, so that you're not typing in like months and so all of those are the uppercase and lowercase means different things. So, but yeah, it's just a notation to parse out date time. So like capital H is hours and lowercase h is something else. And you can parse out all sorts of stuff, weeks, months, out of the date. And so, like you can parse out the day of the week. It's just, it's a shorthand for that.
Okay.
So, and then the percent, it's just a coding expression that feeds into that shorthand. So, but yeah, we can definitely take a look at that. All righty. Couple of tips and tricks. So when you type an open bracket, as you saw, like a list of available columns and constants, which is a bit beyond the purview of this class, but there are constants within the workflow that that you can access through that formula editor. Things like the file path to where you have the workflow saved. Sometimes stuff like that can actually be useful to bring into the workflow. So there's certain constants. You can set other constants or constant variables if for some reason you needed to access the number pi over and over again to 10 digits or something like that. You could set that as a workflow constant, and then you would just bring up pi. So anytime you type in that square bracket, the columns and constants are going to come up that you can access. Can be really helpful. You don't need to type in the full name of the field. Usually if you have a limited number of fields, like you saw with this example, you can just drop down. I have had workflows where there were hundreds of columns, and so scrolling down endlessly is not the most advisable thing, but if you type in the first couple of letters, it's going to nug down to what you want. So, and as you saw, you can start typing in functions. So if you want to see all of the date time functions, you just start typing date, and it will eventually filter down to the functions that match what you're typing in. And then a lot of times it's relatively easy if you know that there's a function that applies, like when we were looking for DateTime today. If you don't necessarily remember the precise name of that function, but you know it's a DateTime something, you can just type in the general category and it'll get you to something where you can look for it and say, ah, there it is. So that is super helpful. Especially in the very beginning, it's tough to start memorizing all of the functions that you've used, especially when you only see them once. So you can actually read a brief description of what the function does. When you hover your mouse over the function, when you start typing it in, it will actually describe it to you. Once you've typed the whole thing in and you've filled in whatever variables it needs, it will no longer do that. So like if you bring up a function, you start typing DateTime, and then you hover over it in the scroll down, then it sits there and tells you what exactly it does and what variables it's looking for. So that can be very useful, especially if, obviously DateTime today, we saw that one and that was the right one. But if you can't remember, well, what's the one that finds the difference between two dates? You hover over DateTime diff and it will tell you exactly what it does. So that can be very useful in looking for the proper function. When you type in here, let me share this and I'll give you some examples. If you type in, see if I can get this to do something wrong. Okay, so when you type in, I typed in D and it brought up the field difference. So difference is okay, so in this example, we corrected this when we were working together. In this example, it still has difference as a string. So let me try and, here, let me make this an integer. Let's run it. It's going to give me an error because I didn't finish typing that expression, but okay. So now difference is an integer, and we'll call this field mistake. Difference plus, and let's add something that can't be added to a number, date. Okay, so now we get this little, you see the teeny little squiggly line here by the plus symbol telling me there's something wrong with my addition here. And I'm trying to add difference, which is now a numeric function, to a date field. Can't do that. So once because I started with difference, it says, difference, a number field. So that shows up in this lovely violet color. Then I try to add it to something that is not a number, like a date field, or if we use, what's a string field? Yeah, these are all DateTime. If we had a string field here, we could add a string field there, and that field shows up black, and then we get the little squiggly line saying you've made a mistake. Type mismatch in operator plus basically just means, hey, you're trying to add two dislike fields. So sometimes these expressions are not super helpful. You kind of have to parse out exactly what that means. It's not in the operator, but there's a type mismatch in what we're trying to add together. Got it. So anytime there's something that's just not going to work, what's going to happen is when you put in a field or a constant and whatever you're trying to do is no bueno, that field is going to show up in black type. If what you're doing is going to work, if we typed something in here that was misformatted as a string instead of days in the proper double quotes, it would show up black. Like let's try. See how it's black now? We've opened it with a double quote and we've closed it with a single quote. It's not going to work. So it doesn't light up in a different color. So our functions that are going to, our formulas that are going to work here, DateTime diff function shows that nice brown color. We've at least typed in the function properly. So the DateTime diff would work if we had a proper value here. Our fields are working because they light up purple, but then we see there's a problem here, a little squiggly line under our comma, and we screwed up something in days. And what does it say? Unmatched quote. Mm-hmm. Okay, not the most descriptive thing, but it's saying, hey, dummy, you've put a double quote here and a single quote here, so that doesn't match. Mm-hmm. And I just did it again. Okay, so you can see it italicizes it, makes it a nice green color. We know that this string is going to work somehow. Data preview is not always a good indication of whether or not your formula is going to work. Okay, so down here, our mistake field, that's not going to work because we're trying to add two things that don't add together. You can add strings together, you can add dates together, you can add numbers together, but you can't add dates to numbers, dates to strings, et cetera, et cetera. So that's kind of a cool little thing. What else we got? Okay, you can add comments with an expression editor, 2 forward slashes, and you can set off comments. They won't show up anywhere in the workflow. They won't come into the field that you're going into. It's merely a comment to help the next user of this workflow to say, hey, here's what I'm thinking with this formula. I'm a terrible Alteryx user because I have literally never put in comments in this way. There are other ways that I like to put comments within the workflow, but I've never done it within the formula editor. But you can do that just like you would in SQL or Python or anything else. And then you can set them off with multiple lines with the /**, */ to bracket those comments if you're doing multiple lines. But if you're just doing one line, 2 forward slashes, for that line and that line only, but you have to keep doing it every time you put in a new line. And then you can do it, it won't interfere with the flow of your formula. So you can actually set comments in the formula as long as the formula is formatted correctly. You can do multiple line formulas and put comments in between. Just like anything with code, you can put your comments wherever you want, as long as your formula is properly formatted. It doesn't trip up. There's no need for spaces to kind of space things out. You can type all of your formulas just in kind of stream of consciousness altogether, or you can put comments in the middle. It won't affect it as long as everything's in the right order and it's all formatted properly. Just looking to see if I missed anything since I kind of did all of that out of order. Okay. So there's notes, unfortunately, there's no example here, but let me just touch on this. Probably the most useful formula, especially for fairly simple workflows, is going to be your if-then formula. In here, it shows the example of using an if-then formula. If-then formulas can be somewhat difficult to format properly. If you bring it up, it's going to walk you through it. But you can do if, then, else, and then you need to end it with end if. You can find a walkthrough on the community. If then formulas, super useful, probably the most useful formula, but I have made many mistakes on formatting those. It can be a little tricky. So once you do a couple hundred of them, it's you don't mess them up ever again. But okay. All right, so that is a kind of basic tips and tricks with the formulas. Any questions on that before we move on? Sample and sort is what we've got left, and we've already kind of played with it a little bit.
There's also switch, right? Instead of if and else, you can also use switch.
You can. I mean, the use case is a little different. For me, if then is useful just because you can put as many clauses into it as you want. And working in marketing, I had a ton of things where we had these extensive if-then formulas, and switch was just difficult to use if you had a bunch of, then, or else if. Yeah, once it gets a bit complex, switch is not very easy to use.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, I'll take a look at it.
Yeah. So there are, I haven't used switch that much. There are they sometimes can be used interchangeably, but I think when it gets complex, you want to use an if then. All right, so the sample tool is one that doesn't get used that often because I think people think sample and they think statistical work. But sample is a tremendously useful tool. A lot of times you use it in doing iterative macros where you want to pull the top line of data off of each time it goes through. But yeah, sample is a tremendous tool, and there are several different sampling tools. The one just called sample is the most basic. So when you go into your sample tool, you're going to see the configuration pane is pretty prescriptive. It's not a super flexible tool, but you've got a lot of options there with that radio button. Now you can, like any radio button, you can only select one, and that's for a good reason because you can't combine those things. But you see the 6 available options. You can either do, and the key there is going to be n, the variable for the number of rows that you want to deal with. So for any data set, you can take the first, if you want to do left, so if you want to do the first number of rows, whatever number that is, or if you want to do the last number of rows, those are your first 2 options. Conversely, you can then skip the first n rows. You cannot skip the last n rows. It just keeps the options limited, but you could sort it if you wanted to flip that around. You can do one of every n rows. So in that case, if you had 1,000 rows and you said n equals 10, one of every 10 rows is going to get picked. These are not selected at random. You'll get number 1, number 11, number 21, et cetera, et cetera. But there are ways to randomize the order of your data if you want to randomize that. If you do want random selection, you have a 1 in n chance to include each row. And so then if you wanted roughly 10% of your data, you would say n equals 10, 1 in 10 chance to include each row. And then it would just do a calculation each time with a random probability. So the probability that you get the first row is 1 out of 10. The probability you get the second row is 1 out of 10, and so on and so forth. So you may or may not get precisely 10% of the rows of your data, but that's inserting a random element into it. And then first n% of rows, you're just taking, again, you're taking the top, so same as first n rows, but you're just taking a percentage of your data. That's useful if you have a data set that's going to flex. And so you don't necessarily know, I'm going to want the first 10 rows, but I'm going to want a sample of 10%. There's ways to randomize the order, like I said. This is going to take the first chunk that you can't randomize that, but it requires the data to pass through the tool twice. You have to do once to calculate the number of rows, and again to return the specified percent of rows, and there's ways to do that. And so those are the options for how you sample your data. And then at the bottom, you have the group by column, which is going to return your values for each group according to the configuration chosen. So if you have a data set with 500 records and you're dividing it into different categories, and you want to return the first 100 rows grouped by a specific category, then you would group by that category and select n equals 100, first n rows. So that way you're not necessarily just getting the first 100 rows of data, you're getting the first 100 rows grouped by some value. So that's very useful if you want to, if the question is, well, give me the top pay for the employee, the top employee in each department. You could group by, and it's not on there, but if you had a list of employees by department, you could group by department and then say first 1 row of the pay, sorting by pay, then it would give you the number 1 for each. So a lot of different kind of aggregation things you can do with this tool. You'll find this, if you haven't already, you'll find this popping up quite a bit in weekly challenges because people love to insert something in here that requires the use of the sample tool. A lot of times people will default to doing the summary tool for problems like that, when in fact sample tool is the simpler option. Questions on just the orientation to the sample tool? We're going to work on it here in a minute in the exercise, but do you have any questions on the configuration or how to use that? I know it can be, especially with the group by, it can be a little confusing. I don't know if you use this often.
It's good so far.
Okay.
I usually understand if I have an issue when I'm doing the practice.
Yeah. Yeah, so we'll do a walkthrough that includes the sample tool. This was confusing to me when I first started out how to use the sample tool properly with that group by. So, okay. And moving on, the last one we're going to talk about today is the sort tool. So you see the logo there is the, we're sorting by the size of the circle there from smallest to largest. So like any good sort tool, you can sort in whatever direction you like. So you have ascending and descending. The string data type can be classified in dictionary order or alphabet order. String values are sorted based on the ASCII value, which just governs, does 1 or 10 come first? And does it go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, or does it go 1, 10, 100, and then 11? And so there's all sorts of weirdness when it comes to strings that are actually numbers and what order they go in. If you want to parse into that ASCII value, you can play with that. That's kind of a specific issue. So, yeah. So you can choose dictionary order or not. Dictionary order is going to determine how the string values are sorted. That's kind of a specific use case. All right, so let's play with it and actually see what we're talking about here. Okay. Do you have the case study employees promoted, should be called?
I should have it. Let me show you. So here's my Alteryx. We're gonna go ahead and open. We will open. You said employees promoted.
Yeah.
Is this one right? Okay. This is the one you wanted me to open?
Yep.
All right. Steps.
Yeah, and then if you want, we can just work it together like we've been doing.
Okay. I can try to do it, and if I'm wrong, you can intervene and you can tell
Yeah,
me.
absolutely. If you don't mind me hanging out, if you'd prefer to have some time alone to work on it, that's entirely up to you.
I like you to watch.
However you think you learn best.
Yeah, I like you to watch and then interrupt me right away if I'm doing
Sure.
something wrong, right? So it just becomes easier for me to just fix it at the moment.
Yeah, no worries.
So they want to analyze sample of 50 employees with higher salaries that have had at least 2 more promotions in the last few years. The data set was already clean to make your next steps easier. Steps. Filter.
Yeah, so in other words, you don't have to run that. They've already run the cleansing and the autofield and all of the kind of the basic data prep stuff. So yeah, starting from there, and really you're just using the tools that we've gone over in these last couple of classes.
Okay. First question is, filter professionals who have 2 promotions in their profile. So we're going to need a filter tool. And then, so we need to have 2 promotions. So we're going to go.
Well, have you run your data? Have you run the workflow yet?
Not yet.
I would just run it. Always the first step for me is run the workflow, and you've been doing this, so to your credit, always just run the workflow once, take a look at like what does your data look like.
Okay. And then people who have 2 promotions in their profile, does that mean that we want promotion 1 and promotion 2, both of them have some value, not null values? Because let me see, promotion, they have the promotion dates, yes. So if they get promoted, they put the dates. So what I'm thinking is that I'm going to take the filters and then, let me try to use the thing that you were telling me. So here, if I look for where promotion is not null, apply. Now I want to sort the same thing for.
It won't.
It won't.
Yeah, let's see. I'm actually kind of curious. I don't know if this is going to work.
Now, let me now click on this. Let me see what it. Yeah, it
Nice.
is. See, wow.
Yeah, there you go.
So you
Yep.
taught me this shortcut, and I really like
Yeah.
it. I'm lazy.
So the and is it's just kind of a double down, like it absolutely has to fit both categories. And I had a guy that taught me how to use Alteryx, and he tried to teach me, like, there's another one that's equals equals. And I just don't, I gotta admit, I don't grasp what the use of it is, but
If you
but
replace this with and, isn't that supposed to do the same thing?
it's same. Yeah.
Okay, if I
So
just
there is some use to the double expression. I got to go back and look it up because I don't remember what it is. But yeah, it should do the exact same thing.
But now with the end, we have 73, I think, records. But if I just change it with and, it is still 73.
It's the same. Yeah.
That might be a practice for
Yeah,
them.
this is like very specific. I'm gonna look that up
Yeah. But then, yeah,
because that always annoys me.
these are the professionals who have 2 promotions in their profile. So the
Got it.
custom filter is promotion 1 and promotion 2 should not be null values, right? That
Yes.
answers number 1. Number 2, drag a formula tool and connect to the true anchor from the filter tool. Okay, here's your formula, and we connected it to the true. Add a new column, total pay. So we want to add a new column, and we want to call it total pay. Okay, and sum the columns. Okay, I need to first check if the base pay and other pay, what's their format. So let's go to the input data.
How could you check using the formula tool
Oh,
before you? There's nothing wrong with what you're using, but based on what we just talked about, how could you check just using the formula tool?
so if it doesn't do the addition, if it doesn't allow me to perform addition, I know it's not a numerical value.
Yeah. Or if you just type in the field and it doesn't, if you type in the two fields, yeah, and try and add them together, if either one of them doesn't light up, then you know they're dissimilar. And then you can just look at data preview because they could both light up, they could both be strings. But then your data preview is going to look like it's not going to be a sum of two numbers. It's going to be a join of two strings, which it clearly isn't. It's added the two numbers together.
I think because all these extra steps that they had ahead of time, the cleansing and the select tool, I think here they already call the base. No, base pay is string, and the other pay is string. That's interesting. And
that is really weird.
It's still allowing me to add them up. But is it adding correctly? Let's check. If the base is about 100,
that's weird because it's double on mine, but it's actually adding properly on yours. That is super strange. Okay. All right. More mistakes. More mistakes. Okay.
110 plus. No, see, it didn't add. It did allow me to write it, but see, it gives me an error saying that we cannot add them up. But then, how come the preview is showing me something?
Yeah, because the data preview is showing it properly. It's showing that it added two numbers together because that first row of data, base pay is 76,000 and change. Other pay is, oh no, that's okay. No, that's off.
I don't know if no. Can I just write two numbers in front of these columns?
No, that it did add them together. The first row of data, base pay is 111,000 or so.
But
Other pay is 7,600.
Yes.
So it added them. That's
Yes,
super weird.
But the formula is showing an error though. So when I wanted to put base
Yeah.
pay plus
That is bizarre.
other
Okay.
pay, so when I put this up, it shows me, but when I run
It
this,
shows you a data preview as if it added two numbers together, but you can't make it a double. Okay. Either way, I will make a note of the fact that the example workflow does not change it properly. Let's go into that select tool and make them both numeric.
so I'm going to change.
So we've identified a problem. Shall endeavor to fix it, but Yeah. Okay. Now let's see if our formula works. It still comes up with the number, and it likes adding things together and calling them a double. So good day.
So
All right.
total pay is done. Round
Yeah.
the total pay column. Use 1 as the nearest multiple. This will remove decimal places. So let me check then. I need to round the total pay. So I'm going to put a new column here. And I'm going to call it rounded total pay. And
So you got a
then,
couple options. You can just modify what's in total pay. So you could just click the drop down and modify total pay without making a new column. What you're doing is kind of the most risk averse is you carry the data forward, all of it intact. But no, make another expression.
yeah.
But you're just going to modify total pay. So click that drop down and just select total pay right there because you made it, so it's the last one. So now you're just going to, in the same formula tool, you're going to calculate total pay. Now you're going to round total pay. There is one other option. Let's finish this and I'll show you what it is.
Mm-hmm. So if I choose round,
if you choose round, you have the most flexibility. So you're gonna tell it the field and then like what digit you want to round it to. So total pay,
they want
comma,
one nearest multiple. Is that what they
yeah.
think? They want just one digit?
Yeah, comma 1.
Okay.
Now, the other option for this formula is you can just click smart round and it will basically figure out what it is you want, and then you don't have to do the multiple. It's fine either way, but just know that either.
Smart round. Do I just type smart round or?
Yeah. Yeah, when you started typing round, it gave you the option. You just weren't looking at it.
Okay, let me see one more time because I have no. Oh yeah.
Yep.
Smart round.
Yeah. So just try putting in the field, and it will figure out the multiple. Bingo. Okay. There's one more option. If you want to get fancy, you can just do all this in the same function. So you just like you probably used to in Excel, you just start nesting functions. So just take, you can just put a parentheses around that. Yeah, or you can just start typing it. That works too.
Like this, right?
Bracket it. Oh, look at that. Like magic. Yeah. Okay. Now we're getting cute. Okay. So you've killed 2 birds with 1 stone right there. Now you've done what is it? Step 3 and 4?
Yes.
Awesome.
Now,
yep. And in the most economical method possible.
Convert the job title field to uppercase. So job title is now, this is called title case, I believe. So we want to now convert this to a uppercase. So I'm going to come here. I want to make some changes on job title. And now, I don't know if there's a function called uppercase. Yes, there is.
Yep.
And then job title. So everything is now uppercase.
Yeah. And so just going back to the previous one, just remember, if you type in any portion of the word, it's going to bring up those options. Okay. So you don't have to start typing upper. If you just said, I really want to see all of the options that I have for changing the case. If you just start typing case, it's going to bring up uppercase as well. So like you notice when you started typing round, what did it bring up? Round and smart round. Even though smart round starts with smart, it is smart. So it knows you're looking for a rounding function. So it's like, let's bring up all the rounding functions. If you start typing in case, it's going to bring up all of the case functions. So just another kind of shortcut to remember, if you've got a rough idea of what you want to do, just start typing the keyword, whatever it is, and it'll bring up all your options for you. But okay, cool. So we've uppercased the job title. What's next?
6. Add a new field called first name. So we want to create a new field called first name. And then get the first name of each employee. So because everybody's name is different length, I want only their first name. So I need to first locate the space because space is the, oh, you know, I can do text to column delimiter, and then I can tell them that the
Good.
space is the, you can.
You could text to column. We're not doing text to column today. So, but that you're right. That is an option.
Okay. Therefore, I'm going to locate the space first, and then get the characters until the space. Is that what I do?
You could do that. That's a little more complex. There's a simpler way.
Okay. If there's a simpler way, okay, I think I'm gonna get the hint from you. What would be the simpler way? First name of each employee. So
What are we trying to get here?
the first name.
Which is,
It's the left.
yeah.
But we don't know how many.
When we have a string here that is separated by spaces. So what are we working with?
Oh.
They could be names or they could be words.
Oh, true. Get word.
There you go.
Yes, you're right.
Yeah. So that is the simplest. What you were talking about, you can do. You can write a function to get everything left of the first space. It would give you the same effects because your delimiter is a space for all of them. So would do the same thing. It's just a little more complex, a little less flexible.
I could never, I can't think this on my own, but with your help, I think what I do in my brain is kind of like in SQL. In SQL,
Yeah.
I think you have to just find the location, then get the data, but this is a lot easier. Just
Yep.
get word, employee name, and zero.
Yeah, but what you were talking about would absolutely work, and there are times when that's necessary. Yeah, you have to get everything left of a certain of the space or of a certain string or something like that. So it's just a little more difficult.
For example, here for the employee name, if the first
Hmm.
name and last name was not separated with a space, but if they had a hyphen, then because for words, hyphen, they still Alteryx still counts it as a one word. Then probably you will try to locate the hyphens location first, and then you will get the characters answer to hyphen, right?
Wait, one more time.
You told me that for Alteryx, instead of space, if it was Lillian dash Scott, when I say get word, I will just get the whole thing, right?
Yes. Yeah, because the hyphen would be part of it, counts as part of the word.
So therefore, if I just want the Lillian still in that case, then I will just find the location for hyphen and then get the characters until the hyphen.
Yes. Yeah. And so the reason that's more complicated is because in the Alteryx expression editor, what you have to do to get everything left of the space is you have to run find string for the space, and that's going to give you the position. So let's say, okay, so the first one there, Lillian Scott, that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. The space is position number 7. So you would go find string and the space. So you would put a blank, like a space in quotation marks, and that would give you 7. And then you would do a left function with that number as the number of characters. Okay. And you would have to do +1 because then you're not counting 0. But anyway, you would just manipulate it until your data preview came up right. But so you'd have to use a nested function. There's no like one word way to get, give me everything left of the space. You have to do it in 2 steps. So you have to get the number character of the space and then a left function for that many characters, and it'll give you everything but the space. So that's why I say it's just one step more complicated, but there are definitely times where you have to do that to get what you need. So you always want to think of like what's the most flexible answer, and you got to think of like what is going to apply in all situations. So employee name, if it's always first name space last name, if you get the first word, it's always going to work.
So I just finished 7, sorting the total
Nice.
pay from high to low.
Perfect.
Now we're on the last one. Drag a sample tool and return the first 50 employees. So first 50 for the first 50 employees. So I'm not going to group by anything.
You can group them by anything. Yep.
And then because we already sort the highest employees, highest paid employees. So now this is going to give me the top 50 people who's getting the most pay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So that's, I mean, good highlight there because that's kind of an inartfully worded step there. So when it says first 50 employees, that's not exactly what you're getting there. If I said first 50 employees, you might think that might give the impression that it's like by ID number or maybe alphabetical by name, something like that. What we're talking about there in step 8, because we just sorted by pay, is you're giving me my 50 highest paid employees that have had 2 promotions.
Okay.
So yeah, I might make a note of that. That's not
Yeah.
the greatest wording there. But.
What if I don't use the sort tool? What if I don't use the sort tool? And then for the sampling, I want again the first 50 employees, but who is getting the highest 50 salary? Like maybe we have 5 people who are getting 150K, 3 people who are getting 130K. Is that gonna work?
Mm-hmm.
Let me see.
It's not, but go ahead and run it and see what comes out.
So I grouped by total pay.
Yeah.
And then I asked them to give me the first 50, but it shows me 73 records. I
Did
don't know.
you ran it already?
Yeah. Run one more time. It shows me 73 records. And then total pay. Because I think so 51,000 is for this cashier. And then 51,000 is also for cash manager. I think it might be 50.
Yeah. So here's what the problem is. What it's trying to give you is the first 50 of each category of total pay. So when you group by total pay, what you're saying is give me the first 50 rows of every level of pay. So let's say you had 1,000 employees that were making $50,000 a year. And you sorted by something else and you say, give me the first 50 grouped by total pay. You're going to get 50 employees that are making $50,000 a year. And then if you had another bracket that was $75,000 a year and you had 500 employees making that, you said first 50. So you get the first 50 of each pay bracket. So that's why you're getting all of them now, because there's not more than 50 making any one thing. Does that make sense?
Okay. No,
Let's go. What do we have? Let me see something where we can illustrate. Okay. That's okay. So connect a sample tool to the select tool. Let's do that.
It's already connected. The sample.
No, the first select tool.
Oh,
Take another sample tool and connect it to that first select.
right here. Yes.
I'll show you something.
Okay.
Okay. Now what we want, let's do the first 3 rows. Grouped by job title.
Okay. We didn't sort. We just asked.
You can put a sort in there and sort base pay descending.
Descending. Control R. No. Okay. So you want
Okay.
to do this one? Yes.
So you've got 180. Okay, so now look at it. Now you have the top 3 highest paid employees for each job title. You see that? So those 3 accountants right there, Elijah, Roger, and Gina, those are your highest paid 3 accountants.
Mm-hmm.
And then the next ones, ambulatory nurses, Julian, Eden, and Julia. Those are your top 3 highest paid ambulatory nurses. Do you see how that worked?
Oh, yeah.
So you've cut it down now,
Hmm.
but you're grouping by those categories. So you said group by job title. You already sorted highest to lowest by salary. You're grouping by job title and saying, show me the first 3.
So if I wanted to if I just change this to the top one people after I sort it.
It's just going
Now,
to give you your top paid employee
yes,
by each title. Yep.
title. And then that means I also have 60 different job titles because it's showing me
Yep.
60 records. And then these are the top paid people for in each job category. Oh,
Yeah.
okay.
Which, I mean, you could, if you put a browse tool
Mhm.
off of, so grab a browse tool and attach a browse tool off of that same select tool
Here
and run
before
it.
the sort.
Yeah, just that same select that we're splitting there.
Yeah.
Just put a browse tool off of that. No, you don't have to delete anything. The select tool. You could do the sort too. It doesn't really matter. Okay, yeah, just run it from there. Sort won't lose you any data. Okay, now click on that browse tool. Go down to the results pane and click on job title. Not the sorting part, just the heading. Yeah. Okay, now go look at your configuration pane. Look at the summary statistics up top because it's a string field. It's going to show you how many are okay, 100%. Cool, that's awesome. What's the next one? Unique. So the browse tool can show you for a string function, it can show you how many unique values you have. Now it'll show you that for any function. So if you have a date time field, like go to, well, it's not formatted properly, but admission date, but it's not formatted as date time. Yeah, go to base pay. Yeah, so see, that's numeric, but it's still going to show you how many unique values you have for the numeric function. Okay. Then it's going to show you how many nulls. If you had any not okay, like leading or trailing spaces, or it's like an infinite value or something's messed up with it, it would show you that, and then how many empty cells you have. And then you got your histogram down there that'll show you like your range of values. So cool for summary stats. Like, look at that. You can see base pay. It's like, okay, my highest paid employee is making 142-ish thousand. My lowest paid employee is making 41. There's your quartiles. There's your average, standard deviation, variance, like all sorts of useful stuff there.
Yeah.
So yeah, cool stuff that, and then if you want to see, if you wanted to see like a list of all the unique values, you can click that where it says top values and it says 685 more. You can go in there. So tons of good stuff that the browse tool can do. Not always aware of it, but yeah, string values, it's going to be a whole different set of things. It's going to show length, and the mode and all of that sort of stuff. So good stuff. Yeah, browse tools can be useful. Just don't overdo them because it'll slow down your workflow.
Okay.
And that is it. Oh, we didn't do the bonus question. You want to do the bonus question?
Direct another sample tool after the sort tool, but this time return the first 50 employees grouped by job title. We kind of did this.
Yeah, we already did it.
What happened with the second sample? What happened with the second sample?
And we already, look at that. We already worked that out.
Yeah. Okay.
So yeah, the problem is you're looking for 50 for each
job title.
I mean, we did it. Did we do it based on job title? I don't remember.
Yes, we did based on job title.
Yeah, we did. Okay.
Yeah. Because we said
no, we did total pay.
No,
so, but you would find the same thing. So if you do it group by job title, what you're going to find is you're only looking at 73 rows of data. You don't have 50 people or more per job title. So you get all 73 rows because you're looking for the top 50 of each job title, where there's like, you know, what, 3 or 4 per job title. So you don't have 50. So that's why you end up getting all the rows. So we already figured that out.
I think your idea is better. Like, have you changed this 50 employees to 3 employees to show me without looking at the bonus question? I think if they also edit this content as 3 employees as you created it, I think it makes more sense.
Making notes. Look at this. We're making progress. Good stuff. All right. What questions do you have on that process?
This is all good so far. Thank you.
Yeah.
So stop sharing.
Yeah. Let me. I've just got the kind of wrap up slides to go here.
What about, do you know which course teaches me about multi-field formula, multi-field binning?
That is, which course does teach that? Give me 1 second. So that, I know that in the certification process, the multi-field stuff falls under the advanced cert. So that would be further down the line. Alteryx Designer Advanced. Let's see if it's in here. Spatial manipulating, spatial. Apps, macros. Advanced data prep. I'm betting it's in there. I've not taught any of these yet, but
yeah, it's okay.
That one's regex.
Yeah. I don't know.
That's
I think
advanced.
a lot of people are taking these courses. I guess I find myself the only person with my last 2 experiences.
Yep, Advanced Data Prep 2 has multi-field and multi-row tools.
Okay.
Yeah, so that's if you, if and when you get down the road, that is in the advanced cert, which is, I highly encourage you to work on. Do you have a core cert?
What is it? Course what?
Core certification. It's the basic level.
No, I don't have any certification. No.
Okay, so the core certification, they've recently reduced the difficulty of getting that barrier to entry. And the thing that they were noticing was that the core certification was really a very difficult test. And so they were seeing a lot of people were good at working with Alteryx and good at building workflows, but they just couldn't, like, the core cert test kind of focused on a lot of detailed stuff that people weren't working with that much. So it's a lot of configuration things. It's a lot of, I don't want to say trivia, but just saying, like, whatever, how we went over a couple different ways to do certain tasks. Well, you're going to figure out which way works best for you, and you're going to do that all the time. And there's nothing wrong with that. The core certification test would require you to know if there were 5 different ways to do something, you had to know what all 5 were. And so, very difficult test. I personally did not pass it the first time I took it. And I know I have a buddy that failed it 5 times before he passed it. So, super challenging. They have very recently broken it down into 4 mini tests. And so each test focuses on a specific area. There's one that's, no kidding, just on data preparation. And I think there's one on transformation. So it's just kind of skill areas. And so each test is much more manageable. The old core certification test, I think, had like 7 practical application problems. It was really difficult to get done you had 2 hours to take the test, and it was extremely difficult to get it finished. So it was just a beast of a test. And so they've since reduced it down to where it's 4 mini tests, And I don't know what the time limit is, probably 30, 45 minutes per test. It's also tough to find 2 hours to sit down and take one test. I mean, you're a working mother, so you know that as well as anyone. So, but now it's much simpler to get those individual tests done, and you can budget time for them better. You can study for them better, but really covers the same amount of material. So the learning is no less. It's just easier to take down each test in piecemeal. But if you pass those 4 tests, then you earn the core certification. So it's the equivalent of taking the old big 2-hour test.
I have seen they were using fundamentals, core, and advanced. I don't know which one goes first. There's a fundamentals, core, and advanced, right? Which one?
So the fundamentals, they started doing micro certifications, which the micro certifications, the red ones, those are literally just kind of awareness and familiarity. So it doesn't really test you on any actual application. Like the test is not so much over using Alteryx, it's over knowing the concepts. So if you do like the fundamentals micro certification for Alteryx Designer, you could pass that right now. Like no doubt in my mind, you would ace that test immediately. There's another one. There's one for machine learning, for the machine learning suite of tools. Really, you've only got to study for it for like an hour, and it's mostly just awareness of machine learning concepts and kind of how Alteryx can use them. But you don't actually have to build any workflows. It's more just I'm familiar with the tools built into Alteryx for it. So yeah, so the fundamentals micro certificates, those are very easy. I urge you to, if it takes like half an hour maybe to get through the test, you can probably knock it out in 20 minutes. So I would say if you haven't done that, you could take that today and pass it. But yeah, the core certificate mini tests, those 4 ones with the blue logo, absolutely, I'm pretty sure you could pass maybe all 4 of them with the amount of knowledge you have now. But they do require a couple, like 1 or 2 practical application questions, but really the practical applications are very simple workflows. Like you're pulling in a couple of tools, like some of the examples we did earlier. So just using a filter and a sort, and then you're done. So quite simple, quite manageable. If you fail a test, easy day, you just got to wait a week to take it again. But yeah, those are easy. But then the advanced is, it's still one big 2-hour test, and it's tough. And that's, a lot of the stuff, most of the stuff everything we did today is on the core test. The advanced test is, multi-row, multi-field formulas, the advanced like regex, spatial functions. So a lot of the kind of more advanced stuff.
Awesome. One last question. They
Sure.
have a conference at Las Vegas in May. So I think I'm going there too.
Yes,
so,
me too.
Is it going to be classes again? So because they offered me, and then my company said you should go to this. I didn't know the
That's
content,
awesome.
and then I just signed up for it. Am I gonna just choose some classes, or do you know how is the 2 days going to work?
Yeah. So the first 2 days are all just kind of builder classes. So, and there's very few, there are some kind of main stage presentations, but the bulk of those first 2 days is just training. And you can go whatever skill level you want. There are plenty. I'm going to be teaching classes on kind of this level. So I'm teaching one called Alteryx for Excel users. And it is just like, hey, you hate doing this in Excel? Me too. Here's how you do it in Alteryx. And it's a lot of this stuff, sorting, filtering, transforming, the basic building blocks. And they have, kind of these fundamental level, like user level classes, all the way up to, they'll have classes on machine learning and intelligence suite and text mining and all of these building elaborate macros. And so all sorts of skill levels. They'll have, and in every time slot, you'll probably have the first 2 days, you probably have like 6 time slots per day. Maybe it's 4. Anyway, but the classes, they're all like, 2 hours or so. They're in nice time blocks. You'll put in for one, and we have these big auditoriums. I'll be up there like leading the workflow and teaching some stuff, and they'll have little helpers walking around. You come in, you open up your laptop, and you just start working on whatever I'm teaching or whatever the other teachers are teaching. But yeah, the first 2 days are a great time, and it's all just like, hey, learn how to use the software better. Days 3 and 4, they're gonna have like the keynote speakers. So they'll have like a comedian, or they'll have some famous person, like the kind of people they have on the online presentation. So like Barbara Corcoran did a talk a couple of weeks ago. Last year we had a comedian, I can't remember his name, but it was hilarious. But they'll come up and they'll do presentations of, people will come up and talk about their projects that they've done in Alteryx, or the things that they've built, or a project that they've done for charity that they used Alteryx to help. And so a lot of keynote speeches. And then they'll have sessions that aren't, that are more like use cases. So they'll have partners, they'll have people from different companies come up and talk about things that they've built in Alteryx. So you can go to those sessions, or you can go to the keynote speakers. It's up to you. But then at some point they have the Grand Prix, which is, no kidding, it's a race, and people have to qualify for that. And it's basically like the championship of Alteryx, and they have a problem, and they race to complete it the fastest. And then the winner gets this, giant Grand Prix trophy. And the winner last year was a young college student from, the convention was in Denver, and she was from UC Boulder. Brilliant kid. But so it's just tons of stuff to do, and just lots of people to meet. It's great place to make connections. I mean, that's last year going to that. That's where I made the connections that got me hired at the company. So
yeah, if I finish the core lessons like these virtual led instructors, maybe in May I can just focus on the advanced courses over there, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And they have sessions there where like you can. So last year they had a session that was basically just like study for the advanced exam. And you would come in and they would give you like all these tips and tricks and kind of things to focus on. They won't give you the answers to the test, but you come in and they say, hey, you should really focus on how to use a crosstab in order to do this. And then they'll work through an example that is most likely very similar to something you'll see on the test. Okay. And then they'll have another session where it's just quiet study room. You show up and you can take the test. And they'll have people walking around that if you have some sort of clarification question or something, they may be able to offer you some limited help. But yeah, it's just that they'll say, hey, it's 2 hours and you're going to be in a quiet room with a bunch of people taking the test. Come on in.
When you get certified, does it expire in certain years?
Yes, 2 years.
2 years. So it's only good for 2 years.
Yep.
Okay. I need to plan accordingly, because I am guaranteed to be in this job until like August 2024, because I am on a grant-based position. But once, if they close the position, then I need to be ready for the job market. So therefore, I'm planning my certifications accordingly.
Yeah, absolutely. It's I wouldn't stress about that too much, because once you pass the test once, you're going to be tremendously confident that, hey, I know what's on this test. I can pass it again. I guarantee you I could pull up the advanced test now and probably pass it in one shot, even though it's been, I suppose it hasn't even been a year since I took it. But yeah, it's been a year and a half since I did the course cert. I could pass it with my eyes closed at this point. So yeah, once you test on it and once you're using those tools consistently, you're going to have no problem. Like when your stuff comes up for renewal, you'll pass it easily.
Okay, you're right. Yeah, that's a good opinion. I will
Yeah,
start putting these certification exams on my schedule small by small.
absolutely. Yeah, if you want, connect with me on LinkedIn because I'm a big believer, so I'm out there talking about it all the time. A lot of people from Alteryx will just Alteryx puts out all of these sort of ready-made social media posts, so you'll see a lot of Alteryx people just kind of cranking that out. I personally don't do that. I'm a kind of an avid user of LinkedIn, so I like to write my own stuff. But yeah, I talk about Alteryx all the time. So if you want to connect on there, then yeah, I like to help people. So, and I've been meaning to do more kind of YouTube content as far as getting through the tests. So
Okay.
never really got around to that.
Yes, we appreciate you. When I go to YouTube and when I find these awesome videos people just created, I just thank them, pray them from their back.
Yeah.
Uh,
No, it's yeah, I've been meaning to do more Alteryx content. I'm planning to start a podcast where I just interview people that are coming into the data industry because I feel like that's kind of a gap in the market that people want to hear about more kind of regular Joes in the industry rather than there's a million people out there interviewing these data social media celebrities and it gets kind of worn out. But anyway, we'll cross that bridge as we come to it. So you're signed up for more classes though?
like you know, I'm under a big stress at my work because so I was a math teacher for last 15 years. So
Oh
my
wow.
background has nothing to do with data. The only data I was using is whenever I give a test to my students, I will just
Mhm.
analyze which question was missed most. Let me just find a activity again to reteach this concept. Like I was
Yeah.
analyzing my own small data to
Mhm.
teach my kids better. But then when this job happened to me, like it's the Texas Education Agency, they want to raise data awareness in school districts. So
Yeah.
they need someone from teaching background to analyze student objectives. And then, they want to close the gap because of COVID-19. So they are funding this program that I'm part of. And they are kind of training us to visualize student scores or analyze student scores. But the
Mhm.
way they show us is like very basic. Like I have been learning Power BI,
Mhm.
but what they're showing me is very simple when
Mhm.
I compare what my organization expects me to do. My organization had a data person. He was also a teaching background, but he had a passion about data science. So
Mhm.
he is self-taught of Python, Alteryx, Power BI, SQL Server. So he just knows all of this in a very good shape. So he created every report so far in my district using all his skills. And
Mhm.
then he's the one who hired me for this grant. But then as soon as he hired me, he left the job. He went to the private sector. So
Yeah.
I couldn't learn anything from him. And then I just became by myself only the person who's responsible with the data in the school district. But the way he set up is he has these very complicated Alteryx workflows for each report he's making. And then he's
Mhm.
writing that data to SQL Server and then pulling the data from SQL for Power BI reports and creating very complicated interactive reports. So I am like so stressed out last 1 year because I don't know what to do, how to do, and there is no help I can ask for. Um,
Yeah.
so right now I have just 1 year left. I need to figure out because I am guaranteed in this position until the grant expires. But once
Mhm.
the grant expires, then they will, decide if they want to keep this position or if they want to let it go. If I don't have any, impact on the organization, I think they're gonna let it
Yeah.
go. And
Yeah. Um, hmm, interesting. I mean, do you feel like you're having impact beyond just picking up his workflows?
so I am a part of a project. So the Texas Education Agency doesn't expect me to, run all data related issues in my
Mhm.
school district. So they put me a part of a small project, and it's that small project. They only pick the extreme low performing 6 schools, and then I am analyzing only their data, and then we're coaching the teachers and the administration to improve the scores for the 6 campuses. So when I'm working that project, they don't get help from any other person, but they're only relying on my analysis, and I'm able to
Wow.
analyze the student averages and the campus averages, and I'm identifying the gap and everything. And but unfortunately, the organization doesn't care about that little project that much. They're trying to make their plans for the rest of the, for the long time, because they had a person who was so comfortable with every kind of data problems, with every kind of reports, and now that person is gone. So, and I cannot just take he has been here for 10 years, so he had a 10 years experience, and I'm coming from classroom. So,
Yeah. Yeah, that's tough. Yeah, I would just say that there are a ton of teachers coming into data, and especially math teachers, they're just uniquely suited for it because you have what other people lack, and that's just an analytical mindset. And so that's the biggest barrier to entry for me, because I do work with people that they just don't have it. And they are just like, oh yeah, data analytics, that sounds like something good to get into. And I roll my eyes every time, because it's like, well, you don't have the curiosity, you don't have just the kind of basic building blocks of what's required to be good at this. And so, but you absolutely have it. And so, yeah, I would say you've just got to, I know that humility is a virtue, but in your position, you've got to kind of toot your own horn and show that, if you've done something, I would say, especially for the lowest performing schools, it's going to be, if there's not a lot of high level recognition of the importance of that, it's going to be on you to get that recognition. And if I were you, I would be sounding the alarm that, hey, we've got these 6 low performing schools, and there are 8,000 students, whatever, like 8,000 students that are suffering because these schools are underperforming. And we're out here doing the Lord's work and trying to make sure that these students' outcomes improve. And then if your analytics leads directly or indirectly to an uptick in those students, you should have dashboards for days showing, our analysis led directly to 8,000 students, an aggregate, or an average improvement of 12% on test scores, or like that would be, that they'd be clamoring to keep you here. So, everybody loves, as much as they may not be like super focused on the lowest performing schools, everybody loves a bit of a sob story, especially when it comes to the kids. And hey, if you say, and especially if it's like, chances are these schools are in like underprivileged places. They're not, it's not the rich kids that are doing badly on the test scores. It's probably the poor kids. So, hey, if you can establish like, hey, these 6 schools in, in like bad neighborhoods in Houston, we improved outcomes for them and gave these kids a better chance. Yeah, that's a winner.
Yeah, so to answer your question, last year I had the license, but I was just trying to go to Alteryx community on the website, and I was just trying to attempt some challenges, but I wasn't able to understand any of them until I studied the solution a couple times. And then I got busy with a lot of work at office, and then this Texas Education Agency assigns me a lot of extra homework. We have these case studies with Power BI and all that. So, but then whenever they told me that there is something called Learning Marketplace this year, and then they add the price to it to my license, I went to website and I saw these instructor-led courses. I wanted to just sign up whatever is available, because because I'm in pain last 1 year, and maybe I can solve my problems a little bit. So whatever is available on the marketplace, I want to sign them up because I have the availability. You know, I'm in full-time training with the work. They know that anytime I need to be in a training, they make the time for me.
Good.
So I am signing up, but let's see how is it gonna go. So far, I got one cancellation, but hopefully if no more cancellation comes up, I'm willing to study and learn this in best shape so that, you know, I can be useful to the organization.
Awesome. Well, I mean, so I don't know if Esther told you, but, you know, she and I are a new team, and, you know, she was hired to run this program, and then she was allowed to hire one instructor. So she called me. So yeah, we are just kind of sharpening our, if you notice any of the long pauses where, you know, I'm not that familiar with teaching this course yet. This is the first time running through this one. So, yeah, I mean, we appreciate the chance to practice. So yeah, if you weren't signing up for the course, we would have canceled this one too. So, yeah, I really appreciate the chance to run through this, and, you know, you're doing a great job from what I can see. You're clearly, this is some review for you. So your skills are getting pretty good. But yeah, I would say just start taking down those tests, and start talking about the difference that you're making, not only for the students, but the fact that you're making measurable results in your own learning. And that's what's going to get people's attention, because, you know, staying humble and staying quiet and keeping your nose to the grindstone, it's not going to get you where you need to go. So, and it's not, you know, like, being altruistic and, you know, looking out for the people that you're actually working for, it's not going to do the students any good either, or the school system. I mean, it's government grants, it's government money. The squeaky wheel gets the grease. So you know, if you're the one saying, hey, we're making a difference over here, we could use a little more money or a little more energy or whatever. If you're the one that can communicate that, and that is a huge part of data analytics, is just that communication and storytelling. If you're the one that can do that, you're going to win, and you're going to win for the students. So,
yep. Thank you so much for your advice, and I
yeah,
really appreciate it.
Yeah, no worries.
Okay.
Well, that is, yeah, content wise, that's all we've got. So if you've got no more questions, we can wrap for today. But yeah, I'd love to see you in more classes.
Yep, I'm good. Are we gonna do the knowledge check? But I think probably it's asking the same tools.
Let's do it. All right.
No.
What do you think?
Get word data to be position 0, 1, 2, 3, if.
I agree. I think it's if. There we go.
Mm-hmm. Correct. Oh, I mean, although we saw a counter example to this, because we were able to add 2 strings according to their example.
Yeah, I would say this is false. The plus can be used with other data types. It can also be used with DateTime. I don't remember if it can be used with spatial, but yeah, so it didn't elaborate, but yeah, it's definitely false. What do you think?
Following methods are available in sample tools. First and first last n%, skip. I feel like skip last n rows. I think the skip ones are not there, but A, B, C, D, G, H.
Close. So you can't do A and B are right. C is right.
Okay.
D is not an option. So that's why I briefly said, hey, you can, if you want to do that, you can just run a sort functions first, flip it so it's going the other direction, and then pull first n%. So D is wrong. I believe F is wrong too. I don't think you can skip the last n rows. Everything else is right. So my guess is A, B, D, or A, B, C, E, G, H.
Yes.
Yep.
Exactly.
Yeah. So just in the interest of, you know, keeping it simple, they didn't do last 10%. Plus, it just doesn't seem like something you'd really need that much. But ooh, Michigan and Ohio, really. I'm from Ohio, and we hate Michigan, so it's my first time seeing the slide. Okay. How many rows from this sample tool configuration? We're going first 3 rows we have not grouped.
Okay, if you didn't get group, then it's gonna return, I believe, 3 rows.
3 rows. Yep.
Mm-hmm.
All righty. Yeah, so as we talked about, filters and formulas, a lot of the same functionality. You have an expression editor there. You have basically all of the same expressions. It's just a filter is just a condition. And so it's going to give you a, did you meet the condition? Did you not meet the condition? A formula is going to give you an actual output. So yeah, always remember that output can be on an existing field. It can be on a new field. One thing we didn't really stress is, I think on the modifying the existing fields, we only went through, let's do a modifier on that field. So like the salary, like, hey, if we add the base salary to the bonus salary, modify the base salary. You may modify the values in a field that is totally unrelated to the fields that you're using for your calculations. So just beware of that. There is a potential there to mess up what your data was. However, nothing's ever broken in Alteryx. You just go back to an earlier step in the workflow and fix it. So, but just make sure the way you have your formula written, you're modifying the field that you want or creating a new field. Yeah, remember position always starts from 0. Length always starts from 1. That is Alteryx standard date format. When you start playing more with the DateTime tool, like you did on that weekly challenge, that becomes a bit more of a sticking point. We went over incorrect data types. Wow, this is like all over the place. Yeah, okay. And we actually didn't go over, that's weird. I'm gonna make a note of that. We did not go over saving formulas. Touched on it briefly, but it's not in the curriculum.
Saving formulas doesn't mean that when you save the workflow, you're already saving the formula?
So yeah, I mean, everything in the workflow is saved, but when you remember the little floppy disk icon on the formula editor, yeah, so you can actually save the formula just like on its own. But that's not highlighted in the content. So yeah, I don't know why that's highlighted there as a key point. These are not key points at all. Anyway, okay. So today we learned to use tools to perform processes to help eliminate bias, and that actually was not stressed either. So I'm going to highlight that. We compared the tools, functionalities, and configurations. That we did do. We used formulas to perform basic calculations and string functions. We organized data values in ascending and descending order and learned how to filter them from out of the results pane, which is a super useful tool, and understood why sampling may be an important aspect of workflow development. Yeah, we kind of did that. So that is it. Any last option or opportunity for questions?
Thank you. I don't have any questions.
Yeah.
So
these are the next courses. I know you're not necessarily taking the courses in perfect order, which is great, because that means that you're going to have things compartmentalized in your head, and you're not going to have everything in kind of a logical formula. So that's going to help you actually remember things, because then you kind of piece together. You're like, oh, I learned the cross tab and the transpose, and I can combine that with formulas. And so just will make the learning better if you kind of get it in weird orders. But cleaning, preparing, and blending data, all of these are good kind of follow-on skills from the data preparation. So at this point, if you went into like joining or transforming data, that sort of thing, good things to learn. So self-guided digital learning, I'm pretty sure you're probably already working on all of those. And then, yeah, you're already working on weekly challenges, so that is not news to you.
Thank you. Yes, it was beautiful. I like these Alteryx classes so much.
Beautiful. All right. Thank you, Fatma. It was wonderful meeting you. And I look forward to being in more classes with you.
Thank you so much, Albert. It was a beautiful day and beautiful class, and you did a fantastic job. Thank you
very much
for all your help, and have a wonderful rest of your day.
Yeah, you too.
Bye.